Today I'm talking to Rodney Chasson, who is the director here at the Highland Village in beautiful Iona, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. And we're in the Malagawach Church, Presbyterian Church. Now, perhaps you can tell me a little bit about the church, when it was constructed, who would have come here, how important it was to the community.
Well, first of all, welcome, Felcha Orov. Welcome to Bella and Gael, Highland Village here in Iona. This building that we're in was built in 1874 on the shores of the River Dennis Basin in a community called Malagawach. It was built by primarily Presbyterian, Gaelic-speaking Scottish settlers, basically as a place to come together and to celebrate their faith. In those days, the service would have been delivered with a version in Gaelic and then followed by a version in English. The building itself, it's pretty much pristine as it was when it was built. We brought it to our site here in 2003, making international headlines, putting it on a barge and floating it across the Bador Lake. So it captured quite a bit of attention and quite a bit of interest from around the world. But it really, for us bringing it to the site, it was to complete the village portion, because a church was so central to communities, whether it was a Catholic community or Protestant community, right across Gaelic Nova Scotia.
Now, Malagawach, that sounds like an Indigenous or First Nations name.
It's a Mi'kmaq name, yes.
So how did a Scottish Presbyterian church end up in an Indigenous community?
Well, actually, all of the area around the Bador Lakes and actually most of eastern Nova Scotia was all part of Mi'kmaq. So everything was really Indigenous in a sense. But the Gaels settled in that particular area, or for this community settled in that particular area. There is a spot out on the island just off of the shores of Malagawach that's considered part of a Mi'kmaq reserve.
Now, you say the services were in English and in Gaelic.
Yep. Yeah, there's a tremendous tradition in the Protestant traditions around presenting. So they would take psalms and they would be sung by a presenter and then repeated by the congregation. So that was a big part of the tradition in Protestant churches. And for many of the Protestant churches, they would have a full service in Gaelic followed by a full service in English. So if you were going to church in the morning, you were there for a while.
Aside from the church, when a visitor comes here, what can they expect to see or to visit?
Well, what we're trying to do here is to take our visitors through the story of Gaelic Nova Scotia. So we start in a replica Hebridean-style black house, and basically what we're trying to do there is give visitors a sense of what changes were taking place in Scotland that spurred immigration in the first place. So it is a stone building with a sod roof, and it gives visitors that sense of what life was like in Scotland and why they were leaving. From there, we move on to settlement here in Nova Scotia. So we have a log cabin and a center chimney house. And really, the story we're trying to tell in that particular era, which is the late 1700s, early 1800s, is what they had to do to adapt to create a new life for themselves here in Nova Scotia. Then by the middle part of the 1800s, we're starting to see Gaelic culture really take on Nova Scotia identity. So the songs, the story corpuses are beginning to reflect the experience here, still also sharing many of those traditions from Scotland. We're seeing Nova Scotia-born Gaels that never knew anything of the homeland, the mother country, other than what they heard. So it was really getting to take on quite a distinct Nova Scotia identity as opposed to what was happening in Scotland. Then the latter part of the 1800s and early 1900s, things kind of came full circle in that we're seeing a lot of outmigration. People are going away looking for work. We're losing people to World War I. There's a lot of outside influences. The railway just came through central Cape Breton and other parts of the island. The Eaton's Catalogue came out. So there's a lot of changes. So we're starting to see some decline in the language as well, in the culture. So throughout those, we have a church, a store, schoolhouse, carding mill, shingle mill, blacksmith shop, and a few other houses too. So that basically visitors can see how the story changed and evolved over a period of about 140, 160 years.
See, in a personal, we don't know in my family. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if it was after Culloden, or we don't know if it was the Highland clearances. We don't know. And then even when you said a Gael, I just thought it was a Highland Scot, but apparently I'm incorrect.
Well, yeah, there's, if you look at the Gaelic is one of 6 languages in the Celtic family tree. So there's 2 branches. One is more based on Welsh, so there's Welsh, Cornish, and Breton. And then on the Gaelic side, we've got Irish Gaelic, Scottish Gaelic, and Manx Gaelic. So they're all kind of connected that way. When we say Gaels here, we're referring to basically Gaelic-speaking Scots, as opposed to lowland Scots who would have primarily spoke the Scots language, which fits under a whole different language family tree. So with that, the Gaels had a very distinct culture. They've had a very rich cultural expression that went along with it, whether it was music, song, dance, stories, you name it. So there is quite a distinction between Highland Scotland and lowland Scotland. So yeah, Scots to a certain degree, but we like to use the word Gaels because it really speaks to the identity of our culture.
Well, since I've been corrected, that's the term I'll use when I refer to myself. Now, I understand that I might be able to do something with a milling frolic.
One of our signature events and programs here is a milling frolic, and it really gives visitors a chance to get their hands right into it, both in singing, but also fulling the cloth. So milling is part of the whole sheet to blanket process, where we can basically do the full wool production. But it became a real tradition around singing work songs while they're doing work. And it wasn't just milling frolics. They did it for all kinds of things as a way of passing the time when they were doing the work. But it's become a real signature event for not just us, but for all of Gaelic Nova Scotia. So we just gather around the milling table, we full the cloth, which basically is shrinking it, and then sing Gaelic work songs. And it's a lot of fun.
Well, maybe I can go give it a go, and maybe I can learn a Gaelic song, and somewhere my grandfather will be smiling.
I'm sure you will. You mentioned your grandfather's from Sky Mountain, and I bet you the staff will find some way to pull in a Sky Mountain song.
I'm going to do that. Well, I want to thank you, Rodney, and let's go have a milling frolic.
Morning thang. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm at the McDonald House here in the Highland Village in beautiful Iona, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and I'm speaking with Hannah. Now, perhaps, Hannah, you could tell me a little bit about the milling frolic and how it came about and the history of it?
Yeah, Gajeta, for sure. A frolic, I guess I should say first, is a work party of any kind, really. There's lots of different kinds of frolics Gaels would have. And so a milling frolic, what we're having here today, is the way we take cloth that's been woven on the loom and we kind of pre-shrink it and soften it up before we make it into clothes. So I don't know if you've ever had a wool sweater you put in the dryer by accident and it shrunk up. Yeah, this is essentially the same process, but it's more controlled. So we've got our woven blanket here and we're going to wet it. The moisture and the friction that comes from when we move the blanket on the table is what's going to make those fibers shrink up. But the frolic part, I guess, is everybody coming together to do this work, because one person doing it by yourself is not so fun, beating a wet blanket for a long time.
It wouldn't be a frolic, would it?
Exactly. So we'll be singing songs, which is going to help us keep in time to the rhythm and also make it more fun. And in Scotland, this was just women's work, but here in Nova Scotia, we've let the men join in the table too. So it's kind of neat, because then we have all kinds of different Gaelic songs that get sung at the milling table too. We might have sailing songs or rowing songs also coming into the repertoire. And if we're, feeling in a particularly good mood, maybe we'll make up songs on the spot as we're going. But I don't know what'll happen today.
And how long would it last?
Well, the number of songs it takes per blanket it just depends on the weaver. They would be measuring, after a few songs with their hands to see if it's shrunk up enough for whatever they're going to use the blanket for. So maybe it would take 3 songs, maybe it takes 7, give or take, depends how long the songs are too. But as soon as we're finished with this blanket, we're going to put it away, and Selak will have brought her weaving too. We'll put her blanket on the table and mill it, and then everybody would bring all their woven cloth to the frolic. So you'd be at this all day, but each blanket might not take a super long time.
So the object is to soften the fibers.
Soften it, and most importantly, shrink it. To pre-shrink it so you don't make yourself a nice new suit of clothes and the first time you go out in the rain it's
I've had
up
those.
To your elbows. Yeah. Exactly. Because it's such a long process to get to here from the time the wool comes off the sheep. So this is the last step to make it just right.
Now, I understand that when they did this, that they would be singing in Gaelic.
Yes, Gaelic songs is what we use. We have a Gaelic song for just about every kind of work, and the rhythm of that matches the work that you're doing. So for milling the woolen cloth, we have certain kinds of songs, and for harvesting, milking the cows, spinning wool, weaving, all that kind of stuff. And when Gaels came from Scotland to Nova Scotia, they brought a lot of those songs with them, but we're also always making songs too, so there's always new songs being made.
Now, I understand that you're fluent in Gaelic.
I am, yes.
So how did that come about?
I started learning as a student at St. FX when I was in university, and I've done a lot of community courses, immersions since then, spent some time in Scotland, and working here at Highland Village has really helped as well. Still got lots to learn, but...
Is it a difficult language to learn?
I don't know that it's any more difficult than any other language. Maybe the thing that makes it hard is just access to learning opportunities, because Gaelic is like a very endangered language. But we're fortunate around here that there are a decent number of community classes and immersions, and we still have some native speakers living in the community and people that have learned the language to fluency. So we're lucky to have the opportunities you do have, but it's just like anything. You gotta put the time in and practice. It's a really common story that people grew up with it and stopped speaking it later in life. So it's great to see, steps for it to come back as much as it can.
Yeah, so are you going to give me a demonstration of this beating a blanket?
For sure. Well, it's a little more complicated than that, but
Okay, I'll
I'm
take
sure
your
you
word
can
for it.
handle it, Sandy.
Okay.
So the cloth here is dry right now, and so for the wool to be able to shrink, we're going to have to wet it. So we've got some water here. I don't know where we want to start. Okay.
Now, I noticed with the table, there's grooves cut in it, so this was made specifically for this?
Exactly, yeah. So this is a purpose-made milling table. I think it's modeled after one that came from the North Shore, actually, but you just need any rough surface for milling. So it could be, an old door or something would do the trick too. But yes, this is specifically for milling.
Now, how is the visitor reception when you sit down and you actually get them doing this?
Oh, most people are keen to try. We'll invite people to sit at the table, and we'll you can explain what's going on like we just did, and we'll see if they want to learn the chorus of a Gaelic song, because the thing with these work songs is usually one person will lead the verses, but everyone joins in on the chorus. So are you up for learning a little bit of a Gaelic song?
Yes, I am, right?
All right. The chorus of this one goes, He haro mo vadi vuya, ho haro, he ho. And that just means, he haro, my fair Mary, my blonde-haired Mary, ho haro, he ho. The start and the end of that chorus is made up of what we call vocables. So we don't know what they mean. They probably meant something at some point, but they're just kind of really rhythmic sounds that we have a lot of in Gaelic song. So let's give it a shot. He haro.
He haro.
Mo vadi vuya.
He haro mavarivia.
And I get that. Ho haro.
Ho haro.
He ho.
He ho.
There we go.
Yeah, I'll give it a go.
Here you go. So just jump in as much as you can on the chorus. You might only get a couple words the first time, but you might be surprised by the end how much you have. So we'll try and keep all to the same rhythm and not speed up too much, or I won't be able to keep up, but we'll give it a shot.
All right.
Okay? He haro mo vadi vuya, ho haro, he ho. Fadam bog va min and va walk he haro mo vadi vuya, ho haro, he haro mo vadi vuya, ho haro, he ho. Whew, Shinu Hain. Well done.
Well, Hannah, I want to thank you. It's been quite an experience. How do I say thank you in Gaelic?
You say tap believe.
Tach believe.
Shanakata, Shayr Bea. You're welcome.
Now I'm talking to Hoss Mackenzie here at the carding mill at the Highland Village here in beautiful Iona, Nova Scotia. Now I just came from a milling frolic, and I'm kind of curious, how would you process the wool that they use to make the blanket?
Well, you've come to the right spot, Sandy. See, you brought in your wool, as you mentioned before, and it's nice and washed wool, no impurities in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the wool here, and we're going to go through a process of carding it, in the sense of first we shred it, just like shredding cheese or something like that if you're doing it at home after you've done your cheese for the year. And then we put it through a machine here. It's called the carding machine. It's the master cylinder. So the master cylinder here takes the fluffed up wool, goes through these drums and rollers, and on the end that comes out here, it's called batting. So your wife will probably have given you instructions that she wants batting for either pillows, quilts, or now they're mixing with the straw mattresses to make it a lot softer.
Well, Hoss, I get lots of instructions from my wife.
Well, as long as we can do the batting for her, you can take it home. You've already told me that your wife needed 3 bags of batting, okay? So out of the 10 bags, the other 7 bags will go to Ralachan, which is Gaelic for roll wool, which is the wool that your wife will spin with. Okay, so those are the 2 processes that we're going to do on the wool today for your 10 bags of wool. So it'll go through the drums, and when it falls out here, it'll be in a long strand like this, and it's batting. From there, we take the batting, and we put it on a second carding machine identical to this, except just a little bit smaller and a little bit more compact. So we put the strands on the table, just like a table like this, goes in lengthwise, in the second machine, and what comes out the far corner over there is the Ralachan, the spinning wool for your wife. And that will look like this here. So this is spinning wool that she'll spin with. Now we have dark wool on, because it's the beginning of the season for the wool, so we had this left over from last year. So that's what it'll come out for to spin with.
It's very light.
Very, very light. It's like a feather. For the batting, we don't care. We just stuff it in a bag and whatnot. But for the wool to go home to spin with, we put in what is called a knot. And if you look at it closely, it looks like a Celtic knot, okay? So we roll your bag, you come in with a bag, we roll the bags back, and we gently place these rolls in those bags until you get 7 bags of your wool. We'll put your name on it, Sally McLean from Big Harbour, and then we'll send a note down to your house by a little kid who'll run down. I'll give him a couple of pennies, and he'll go down and tell your wife that your wool is all ready to come and get picked up here.
They say it's amazing that it survived all these years.
Yes, and well kept out of the weather. That's the main thing for these old machines.
Well, Hoss, I want to thank you, and now I'm going to go over to the shingles.
Very good. And I'll send a note down to your wife when her wool is all ready to go.
All right, you do that, but do me a favor. Don't send a bill.
It'll be a very, very small bill.
I'm at the shingle mill here at the Highland Village in beautiful Iona, Nova Scotia, and I'm speaking to John McLean. So perhaps you could tell me a little bit about the machinery in here and the shingles and what they would have been
We
used.
sure can. This here mill was built up in the eastern U.S. back in 1862 for making shingles. Now this mill was on its way to Newfoundland on a boat that sank in the lake. And the locals picked us up off the bottom of the lake, and it ended up down Loch Lomond for a short while making shingles. From there it went to Irish Cove, where it stayed until it come here a few years ago. And it's made millions upon millions of shingles.
What's the process that you would do when you actually make a shingle?
Well, first the man would cut the tree down, and then it's cut into 16-inch blocks. They're called bolts, and you can see them on the carriage. And then you put the block in the carriage up here, and this carriage goes up and down, and it cuts the shingle off every time. The shingle is going to land here, and it's going to flip to there, and then we're going to take her. So now I'm going to put it on this machine, which will just clip one edge, make it nice and square like this. Now you got a squared shingle. Now, once you get your square shingles, you got a man that's going to stack them in the stacker. When you get 22 tier in the stacker, you bundle them. That's a bundle of shingles. 4 bundles to a square of shingles. A square of shingles will cover 10 by 10. And there's 4 bundles to make a square.
Let me count your fingers.
They're all there. They're all there.
Now, John, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed my stay here at the Highland Village. And I got to say, I've been thinking about putting a metal roof on my house.
Yeah.
But after talking to you, I think I just might go to shingles.
And keep in mind, we got the shingles here.
I'll be coming to see you.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll have
it's
them
a pleasure
here
to
for
meet you, Mr. McLean.
Yes, you too.
And I hope to see you again.
Take care now.
You do the same.
Yo, I get sold away, love. Yo, I get sold away, love. Yo, I get sold away, love. Alaska guy, nach deine Jeri. Zulsche pain now, me va through a get. Fesker forward it, ach, buana. Hold a chase, a fate, Henry Guo, and Smolin and yo, I get sold away, love. Yo, I get sold away, love. Yo, I get sold away, love. Alaska gain, I found deine Jeri. You were awake, Giangator. Kom en crow, it's no way of hela. Skat got me in pocket, skat your min jerka. Na kuma buam sa moro hela. Yo, I get sold away, love. Yo, I get sold away, love. Yo, I get sold away, love. Let's get going, I found deine Jeri. Yo, I get sold away, love. Yo, I get sold away, love. Yo, I get sold away, love. Let's get going, I found deine Jeri.
Well done. Well done.